It's swirling.
Do
The
not,
blue
do
thing
not.
is swirling.
The blue thing is
It is
swirling.
official.
The blue
The blue
thing is
thing is swirling.
Oh no!
It says there is a live video starting. Oh my!
It's starting.
It's starting. Can you
It's
feel
starting.
it?
It's starting.
Can
Oh
you feel
snap!
it?
Da, da, da,
Dun, dun, dun,
Dun, dun,
dun.
dun,
da, da, da.
Another episode of Stories 10Q.
Oh, snap. We're back.
We're back. Every so often we'll be like, oh, we're not going to be back till Tuesday. And we're back.
And then we'll be back on Friday. Surprise, gotcha.
Oh, that's funny.
So, Hilary, you are having an amazing day from the sound of it. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that for sure. And I'm getting ready to travel. I live in just north of Toronto in Canada, and I'm getting ready to travel out west to Calgary to spend our birthday. I have an identical twin.
Oh, wow.
So I
really?
have an identical twin sister who lives in Calgary right now. She's been everywhere, but she's right now in Calgary, and there's family out there. And it's going to be really wonderful. So yes, but I'm now doing that mad dash around. You know, I used to travel all the time, and then when COVID hit, was no travel, right? And now traveling again. I've been a couple of places, flown a couple of places in the last year, but it's a different ball game now.
It really
It's
is.
such a different ball game.
Things
Getting
have
ready
changed.
to go to the airport is like, it's stressful. And my brother has a travel agency, and he spends his first 3 hours every day with staff trying to figure out how to deal with the recent shutdowns and strikes, and trying to get people reorganized so they actually can make it to the games that they're performing in. And
Oh, absolutely.
And he's one of his contracts is working with bringing a whole 100 indigenous chiefs to meet with the Pope here. And there's two different meetings with the Pope, and that's a whole other orchestration. So and every day there's a different strike, there's a different problem. In Heathrow, there's overheated runways. It's a disaster, but people are traveling.
It's an interesting thing because I have my view of that travel section is from the logistics side. So that for years what I was in was logistics, and no, all of that is also constantly affecting the movement of businesses and everything. There's constantly moving stuff. And
everything's moving all the time. And when it stops, it stops.
And when
exactly.
But even when it stops, it's still spinning.
Yeah.
There's still movement even when it stops. Hey, you know that the fairies have 5 what they call unfamiliar senses that humans don't necessarily understand, and one of them is movement, and it's not physical movement, it's movement of perception, movement of the aha. When you're in logistics, you're in constant movement, both physically, but then there's a whole whack of movement that's happening on paper, on computers, energetically, that things can come to an absolute standstill physically, but that's when all the other movement starts.
Well, absolutely. I think that to a great extent, life as we know it for humans has become a great giant game of whack-a-mole as opposed to living sometimes.
Yeah, we shuffle things around a bit.
That we're so busy shuffling that sometimes we forget we're here.
Yeah.
I know. And there's a hole over there. I think I'll peep up. Oh, that wasn't a good one.
Well,
maybe I'll go back down again.
Well, I am going to go with the idea that I think you may have already told us where you're from. So you're on your way to Calgary, but you're actually traditionally in, say again?
I live just in a town called Newmarket. We have about 100,000 people just north of Toronto. I've lived here about 30 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
I moved here from Ottawa. Prior to that, Montreal. Prior to that, Toronto. Prior to that, Red Hill, Surrey, England, where I was born.
So you were born in England and then moved to Canada.
Born in England.
Around Canada.
So
yes.
That brings us to our next question, because that's kind of interesting. So the next question always gets me because I have a lot of memories from my childhood. I have a lot of close my eye memories, almost like photographs.
Like you can get back into that moment.
That I can get right into that moment still. All the way back to, the joys of running around married housing are the ones that I always go back to. My dad was an architect at U of M. And, getting to be an architect, doing that at U of M, University of Michigan. And
Right.
they were in married housing, and the joy of married housing is that it means that everybody there values education, because
Right.
it's not bachelor level, it's all, continued learning. And
Right.
they have to be married and have children.
Right.
So I grew up in an environment where
Wonderful.
I didn't think of people as I don't know, that there wasn't a racial difference
No.
in my head. Living
No.
being near Detroit doesn't, helps a little bit too, that there's a perspective.
Right. For sure.
But no, I ran down the street with kids from Mexico and China and all over the world. And everybody
Wow, your
just
own
kind
global
of,
village.
yeah, and it isn't until I got older that I recognized that.
Right. Well, as kids, you just accept that's the way the world is, right? And then
Yeah.
it's when you start going outside of your gorgeous bubble that everything starts. People start labeling things and putting names on things, and meanwhile, you just had an amazing experience, and now somebody's telling you, well, this is what it was, and this is what it's called, and this is what you were wrong in how you saw it, because this is the right way to see what you experienced. We know what you experienced because it's under this category.
Bah humbug! I don't listen to those people. I'm just
I know,
I'm going to
just
make
like
my
that's what
bubble.
systems do.
I'm going to
That's
make
what
my
systems
bubble
do.
bigger. Is what I'm going to do. I'm going to extend the village.
Excellent.
But it brings up the
Absolutely.
question. So, if you go back as far as you possibly can, what are your first memories?
Well, you see, this is where I have a hard time differentiating between, is it the home movie I saw or is it the actual memory? And but one of the first memories I actually have is when my mother gave us sunglasses, and I think we were about 4 years old. We were in Canada.
Okay.
And I'm looking around, and my sister pointed somewhere, and she said, "Look over here." And I turned my head. She said, "No, don't turn your head. Just look over there." And I said, "I can't see." It was on my left-hand side.
Mhm.
I said, "I can't see unless I turn my head." And that was, so I went running into my mother, and my mother said, "Well, let's have a little chat here, Hilary. I'm surprised that you haven't, I don't quite know what she said to me, but she explained to me that I had lost my left eye to retinoblastoma when I was 2, and that this was an artificial eye that I had. That's why I had to turn my head to see.
But you didn't know.
My first recollection, I had obviously buried it was right before we left to come to Canada and England, and the doctor said, "There's something."
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to closer to him. Hands.
Gosh, I am so sorry.
It shouldn't really affect it though.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. But
Okay.
some days the technology stymies
Some days,
me.
yeah.
I am so sorry. I am deeply
Is it
engrossed.
better now?
Yes, in the story, because I got
Okay.
as far as you had blocked out the memory that actually it was in Surrey before you came to Canada that you.
Well, actually, no. What happened? Yeah, I blocked out the memory of what had happened. Yes, where my mother she kept insisting of taking me to different doctors because we were about to leave to come to Canada, and she said, there's something really wrong with her, and the doctors kept saying no because there wasn't anything wrong with my twin sister, and she just kept insisting like a good old tight mama bear, and she got me in to see the top surgeons in London because she said there was something definitely wrong, and the eye specialist took one look at it and said, "It's absolutely an issue. It's retinoblastoma. It's cancer, and if you hadn't brought her now, by the time you got to Canada, she would have been totally blind."
Man, that was some high quality doctoring on the behalf of the first guys.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't it? But that's why I just love this mental health realm, because we have the same thing happening in mental health. But thank God for my mother. But I had blocked out all of that. I had blocked out the trip from England on the ship to Canada, and I had blocked out when we first arrived. All of that until I had something on my face. It was the first time I'd ever had glasses on of any kind.
Oh.
And so it was, and I guess it was that on my face, and my sister saying, "Don't move your head."
Just look. You
I
can
finally
see.
went running into my mother.
Wow. What an
Yeah,
amazing
it was crazy.
experience. And what an amazing experience.
It was, and then it gets funnier because I would go to the sick kids hospital in Toronto for my checkups, and you don't realize how much your eyes change when you have an artificial one, because it has to constantly be changed for size, for color. And whenever we'd go into the specialist, and I would go and get a new eye, my sister would get really upset, and she'd go,
she
"No,
didn't
I don't
get a
get
new
anything."
eye.
So we have to go to the gift shop, so that and she said, "Oh, you get to choose your eye. You get to have choice. I just have to have the ones I've got." And because my mother had always made it sound like it was a really cool thing.
I'm
It
sitting
is
here.
kinda cool.
I'm sitting here going, I want a magic
Yeah,
8-ball eye.
it's
I
kinda cool.
desperately want my eye to be a magic 8-ball. Like if they could make me one that I just rattle my head and then an answer pops up, that's what I need.
Well, it's so funny because I have met some amazing oculists, and one in particular that I met in Ottawa, and he was an artist, and his sister lost her eye, and she went to see someone to have the eye made, and he was so distraught with the quality of the eye that he went back to school, and he used his artistry talent to be able to make the most amazing eyes. And he got depth of, because he was an artist, normally it was a technician that went and did that kind of work.
Right.
But being an artist, he'd integrated his love of making things with art, and he made the most amazing eyes. And the stories he would tell me about the babies, that was the hardest thing, to go and fit babies with artificial eyes. And anybody, I think, that works with a prosthesis is an amazing human being, because they're working with something that is now missing, but they're making it feel like you've actually gained something.
You know what? I was in the elevator the other day. I've been a little off the grid because we had a family emergency, so I spent about 3.5, 4 days over at the hospital. Not for me, I'm fine, and the person she's fine. My mom, who is a little bit older than you,
right?
She will be 78 this year, and she had a heart attack on Saturday. But
oh my Lord,
she's doing really well. She's an amazing. I actually, in the first conversations I had with you, immediately knew I needed to get you and my mom together.
Because, I love that.
Oh, you guys are kindred spirits all over the place.
You guys love
that. We got to make this happen.
You guys even sound a bit like each other. It's pretty funny.
But
I love it.
So I was in the elevator, and there was a man with a prosthesis. He had a leg, and his shirt had two, like, very much the restroom figures, two full-sized, the traditional gentleman's figure, and one in the middle missing a leg with a leg off to the side, and his shirt said "Some assembly required."
God, I love it.
That's an awesome shirt.
God, I love it. Well, I've always thought that I have one eye that looks inward and the other one that looks outward.
Ooh.
And I came into that when I started becoming a healer. When I went into healing about 30 years ago, because I went into the deep dark night of the soul after 15 years in the federal government and 10 years in private practice, and then as a strategic change advisor. And I just was so tired of people playing with change and not really doing anything. And so I just literally I quit. I left the partnership with my sister, and I just went into this really deep hole. And a friend of mine reached out to me and said, I have found an amazing woman. She does Reiki. I said, "What's that?" She said, "Oh, well," she says, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You've got to go experience it.
You have to feel it.
I did, and the way that this woman practiced Reiki was that rather than just lying on a bed, which I fully honor the traditional Reiki, but what she would do is that she would do the energetic heat work, but it was also including sacred psychology. So you would travel inside, and you would meet different feelings, and they would become characters, and then you would get the stories from these. You would name them, and then they would tell you a story about who created them, under what circumstances, and I absolutely fell in love with it, and so it helped me personally, and then I went and became a Reiki master myself, and had my own practice. But what was really cool about it was it wasn't until I did that energy work and really deep kind of intergenerational release work that I really embraced my addiction that I had. I think when I went into energy work, I had been about 15 years, I think, or 10 years sober. But I really got underneath all of it with the energy work. And it was during the energy work that I really started to really sense this inner outer in terms of my eyes.
God, isn't that so? God, I have such a history with energy work. I mean, you want to talk about a way to impress girls when you're in your early 20s. Stroke their aura, they'll be blown away.
Oh, absolutely. Depends on which one.
Right. Reiki in the wrong hands. What can I say?
Yeah, Reiki in the wrong hands is really a no-no.
Well, for the record, I did not believe in manipulating people's energies, but I will say this, so that my first exposure to Reiki is at about 13. My mom was in what
a critical age.
A new agey group with a beautiful group of people. We were discussing a lot of things, and I tagged along. That I still have a beautiful connection with our friend, massage therapist / Reiki master / just amazing guy. And one of the things I've noticed, especially in my mom's journey, is that there's more, they're working lately. There's a lot of talk of Buddhism as Buddhist psychology. I joke about we're at a moment in energy work where Paul tries to figure out how you convince people they don't have to cut off their schmeckle. The growth of Christianity depends on the idea that you don't have to follow all of these rules.
Right.
And so that what I see is a growth in this energy work that kind of is flowing beyond some definition.
And that's what is beautiful about it, because energy has no borders, and it is, it has boundaries and structures, and it has different kinds of forms, but that an energy field is such an amazing environment to be in, and it's how you want to be in the energy field and how you want to pick up information from the energy field. And the more that you do it without rules and without somebody telling you how it's done, and allow your own intuition and your own way of being in the world to be your interpreter, that's when it's magic. It's when we go into these things and you're led down a certain path, and this is what you're supposed to see and this is what you're supposed to do. I understand that for some people that's really important, and I get that. I know for me, I would just say I'd leave you behind and I'd go off on my own little adventure.
Exactly. Well, what I tell people is when you're searching for keys, you stop when you find keys.
Yes.
So if you define what you're looking for, you'll find that every time. Yep. But you'll miss the rest of it.
Exactly, because you'll stop.
Keys are in the last place you looked, because it'd be stupid to keep looking for the keys. But if what you're looking for is the awe-inspiring every moment that there's opportunity, I've never been here before.
Yes.
So how do you work?
How do I work? Well, it's so interesting in terms of how I work today is in some ways very similar to how I've worked for the last decade or so. In many ways, it's not. It's so I evolved through the work system, through the working in the government, and then private practice, and then I opened after my dark night of the soul, coming out of that, I decided I was going to open a business spa. And I found a place on our main street, and it was a beautiful place that had a ground floor, and with a lovely kitchen and dining room and living room, and then an upstairs which was rather like a loft with skylights.
Oh, wow.
And I walked into this building, and I said to the guy who I was going to share office space with, he had a little bit another part of the building, and I said, I'm going to open a business spa as soon as I saw those skylights. And he said, what's a business spa? I said, I have no idea.
I'm sitting here saying the same. Yes.
But that's what I'm going to open. And so I started to unpack what was a business spa. And I had designed a strategic planning because I just once I was doing healing, I also wanted to see how could I integrate it into my strategy work that I'd done for years. And so I created with my sister, we created a strategic planning process that actually was based on the chakras.
Oh, wow.
And that was, you traveled through the chakras, you did personal healing, but you were also developing a very different kind of plan and an understanding of your business, and a plan that went along with it based on the chakras. So I knew that I wanted to have a space that actually did that work, and it was an environment that was conducive to that work, because I really hated doing it in the big ballrooms of the hotels. And this was a lovely intimate space, and so I knew that was going to be part of it. And I happened to, and I had, by this point, I had left my I've been the executive vice president of this consulting company with my sister, and I had left. And we divorced each other. My poor parents, having twins divorce each other, is really not a pleasant thing to live through.
I bet it was rough.
It was very rough. And there I was a single mom. I had one child who was about 5 and the other 15. Oof. And it was a really difficult time. But I said, this is what I want to do. And my parents were incredibly supportive. And so I opened this thing called a business spa. The idea was that you brought your business for it to become rejuvenated.
Oh, wow.
With the understanding that your business had its own energy, it had its own personality, it has its own destiny. And that you were merely there. You weren't the owner of it. You were like the parent or the guardian.
I resonate so deeply, because I literally, so as somebody that doesn't do well with behaviors that are centric to myself, that I'm not good at, I'm important. So one of the first things for me was the concept that this exists as something separate from me. That what I'm trying to do is build a nonprofit, and what I want is no part of it, in the sense of monetarily. I literally am at a point for me where all of this meditation on right work has probably not been the best thing for how to raise money for a nonprofit, in the sense that I don't have an interest in any money associated with me. I'm not here for money. I'm here for this experience, and it doesn't. That can be. Ross over there, yeah, he doesn't ask people for money. We need money. But that's so meaningful to me, because I think that of businesses. They're an expression. Humans by nature are creative.
Yes,
we sometimes we define things as non-creative, and it's like, wait a minute, were you using your imagination and creating something? That sounds creative to me.
Exactly, and businesses are, and I think this is the especially the micro businesses that are starting up through COVID and will continue to grow. They need different kinds of supports and nests and infrastructures to support them, because they are actually the ones that are on the fringe, that are not tied to the collapse of the current system, but are birthing out of it. And it's just like it. I always thought of it as it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a marketplace to raise a business. And so this place that I was so funny, because it had been a center for unwed mothers, teenage mothers. And so the upstairs were all the cribs and bedding was, and the downstairs was the play area. So there was something I wanted to do with the space, but I wasn't quite sure what. And then a woman calls me up, and she said, I'm an interior designer. I heard somewhere that you're opening a business spa. What is it? I said, I don't know. I have a sense of what it is. She said, well, I would like to help you define what it is. I said, I would love that. She said, because I am an interior designer who always goes in and I'm told what the salon owner wants and what the store owner wants. And I haven't had the opportunity to have a portfolio where I could co-create. And I
That's
said,
beautiful.
well, I desperately need that. And she said, so I would need a little bit of money for supplies and stuff like that. But what if I were to bring my son and live with you and your two sons, and together we'll design this spa?
Oh my
I said,
God.
sure.
I love this
Come
journey.
on down.
I love this journey. This is so much us.
Yeah.
It's so cool, right? And you just open the door and people walk in, and there she was. She came with her son, and the first thing she did when she walked into the building was she went into the front hall and she said, "Oh my God, this floor's all," because it had been built in like early 1900s, and she said, "Oh my God, this floor's all wonky," and she said, "I don't think we have enough money to rebuild the floor, but let's do this." She said, let's create a floor out of tile that feels like a wave.
Oh.
And so the kids
embrace the wonky.
Yes, exactly. We embraced the wonky. We utilized the wonky to our best advantage. And so we had the
That's
tile.
our t-shirt
and the kids
right there.
had such a good time hammering these tiles and breaking them in pieces. And it was a great opportunity. And so, and she said that, with feng shui, that the major energy force was coming down through the central post as you walked in. And so she had the wave come out from that. And in this hallway, and to this day, that flooring is still there. And then she did a decor that was superb. Absolutely. I would never have designed it. She built a stage upstairs. We put instruments. We had, she created in the dining area, she actually put benches all the way around the room and a massive big table, and it was called the Heart Room with beautiful cushions. And anyway, she literally brought that spa to life. And I had it for 10 years. And people would, and that's where my healing practice was born. That's where I would do all kinds of strategic planning there with this, the process of the chakra-based strategic planning. But after 10 years, I had been very successful in moving into consulting work, and I wasn't there anymore. And so it was just it was time. I'd had 10 years. We'd had a wonderful journey together. It was very sad letting her go, but it seemed like I was off to another chapter, which I was. And so it was interesting. When I opened the spa, I actually birthed two businesses in 1998. One was the business spa, and it was like the delivery of the services,
right?
And Essentia, which is the company I still have to this day, and was named by a neighbor down the street when she was in marketing, and she said the business spa needs another name. Like it has that. It's just that the tagline is the business spa. And I really fought that. No, it's a business spa. She said, it needs another identity to go with it. She said, you're a twin, so maybe you just need two. So I said, okay, we'll do two. And so Essentia, she came up with the word Essentia.
I like that.
And Essentia has such a beautiful double meaning because it means that it's back in time, because you are an ascendant from the past, right? And it also means, so it's from the past, but it also means to ascend, to go up. So Essentia actually holds two very different meanings in itself, and that's what the energy of the company. She's 24 years old, and she's been my companion and partner for 24 years, and has evolved and grown with me.
That's amazing. That it's when you're open to the process, and that's very much our experience too. I mean, I forget if we'd mentioned it, but Ross lives here.
Yeah.
That's a similar experience that we met at a fire.
Wow.
And
love that.
We connected on, oh my God, he's musically so frigging talented. I would have just, you know what? No, he blew me away. That, okay, so one of the things you never see is people understanding. A lot of people love music. Not everybody gets theory, and especially if they haven't been taught it.
Yeah.
And Ross and I got talking about sound. And I was at the point of, okay, considering these things. I had maybe by that, and I paid for the website at that point. I forget.
I don't know.
It came shortly
I
thereafter.
think you paid for the website before I think
I did.
Yeah. You had came up with the idea. You had came up with the idea for Studio 586B, and the funniest part was our first conversation. Was literally you were talking about, oh, I'm building this studio in my basement, and I was like, dude, I've been looking for a place to record.
Yep.
Like, seriously, it was that simple. And I was out the next day.
Let's just tell it the way it is. The next day, why? This is a forced happening. This is the universe saying this is about what's going to happen.
Well, no, there
was a disagreement with your mom.
No, that wasn't. That was like a week later.
Was that a week later?
It was a week later. The next day, I came over. And we hung out.
And you stayed all night because you were like, can I just stay? And you were playing with this. There wasn't even that much stuff yet.
There wasn't that much stuff yet. We didn't have the board. We didn't have this computer.
The table wasn't here.
The table wasn't here. It was just. But we've built some stuff, and it's.
We built some stuff.
Wow.
It's our baby.
Your studio.
It's organic.
It's and we haven't known where it's going.
Yeah.
And it perplexes people when I talk to them about what I'm going through as far as my current experience. And they're like, well, what you're going to have to do is focus in more. And I'm like, yeah, that's not kind of how this journey's gone.
No. But it feels like it's one of those beautiful journeys that goes out and then it comes in, and then it goes out and then it comes in, and then it goes out and it goes in, and contract, expand.
Very much.
So that you can come back into recharge, and then
we hit the quickening.
You can't recharge when you're expanding. It's very, very hard to do that. I've not met many people that can.
Facts.
Well, you have to plan the expansion.
They're not here anymore.
Well, and that brings us to the next question, actually, because it's a valid point. Because you're right, you can work yourself to death, especially when you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
But it brings up the next question.
If you don't play, what are you doing? How do you play?
How do you play? I
play with work, and so I've always been, going back to the twindom thing again. We actually have been studied, my sister and I. We were studied when we were 6, actually, at McGill University in Montreal.
Oh, wow.
And I had a very blessed upbringing, incredibly blessed upbringing, and 2 incredibly incredible parents, and another brother and a sister who younger than my sister and I. And we were very, very blessed. And but growing up as a twin was a very unique experience, and being around someone who was so similar to you and yet so vastly different. And so Leslie was always the serious one. And so she would be she was so much like my dad. She would study. She had to get the best marks ever. My job was to entertain her. So she would be studying away, and she would be getting really frustrated, and I would go put some crazy outfit on, and I would knock on her door, and I would make her laugh. And I didn't study, and my university marks my first year actually showed that. But so I've always loved to play. That's always been my bet. And it was hard to work, but I did it. And I said to myself, well, I've got to be, to make it in this world, I'm going to have to work. And I'm going to have to work the way that everybody else works. And it wasn't until, again, after 25 years, when I opened up the business spa, that I really allowed myself to play.
You were like, screw this, this is not me. I got to go play.
I can't, exactly. I need to play. And it was funny when I wrote a chapter in actually a beautiful book called Water, a Social Opportunity. And it was a number of years ago, there were a number of us who worked were known in the water field, to come to Queen's University. And for a week, we brought in our different case studies of what we've been working on, and then a number of us were asked to actually write up those case studies, and it was published in a book. And the editor actually writes something about me, saying Van Welter. According to Van Welter, we should roll up our sleeves and put on our party hats and
absolutely.
get to work. And she captured me absolutely beautifully, and I'd never thought of it that way. And so I've always loved play, because I believe that it finds the creative part of us. It's the most amazing divinity that lives in us, that comes out through play.
Right.
It comes out in watching children. You see divinity in
so
action.
Much. Yeah,
when you watch, when I have not seen my grandchildren for 2.5 years. They live in
oof.
Sweden,
Oh wow.
and hoping to see them soon. Because I miss that energy. They were living in Miami for a while, and I was able to get down there very frequently. But now, with being in Sweden and the pandemic, of course,
It's
that
been
hasn't been
hard.
possible. But I see the divinity in my grandchildren all the time. The sparkle in the eye, the
Yeah.
awe, the wonder, the awe. Like it, and that's who we are at the
Yes.
source of everything.
So deeply. I talk often about the fact. So I have a 9-year-old grandson that lives with us.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
seven grandchildren. So I mean, there's a range. Plus, she babysits some. I have kids all around. And animals, lots of animals. Because I have embraced the idea that in meeting all living things as a revered teacher, that
Right.
the realization that the 9-year-old has probably taught me more than almost anybody on the planet. That at a moment in my life where no, I had forgotten how to play. I had
Yeah,
surrounded myself with a sense of responsibility.
yeah.
That even before my dark moment, um, he was the piece that allowed me to dream. There's a reason why there's a swing set that's a third of the backyard. It's
Yeah.
because it was a place I
You
never
have the
had.
pirate ship too, don't
Yep.
you?
Yeah, I have a pirate ship and a rocket.
Yep. Yep.
And it's built all around it so they can play. There's floor is lava because there's stuff they can jump up on and climb. There's ropes hanging everywhere. There's the best part was I didn't know it was there, but I could go back and occupy that space with him and
Yes.
dream those little boy
Yes.
dreams,
Yes.
and just let it dream of without an attachment to what was impossible. Just a oh okay, you know.
Well,
It's
what's really interesting about that too is that so a number for about 15 years I've specialized in looking at outdoor space design, and
mm,
because I moved out of doing strategic planning kind of work and got into the place of how do we take these idling spaces, these isolated abandoned spaces, and how do we bring them back to life in a way that actually is a demonstration of parts of ourselves that we can bring back to
mm,
life, and how can we replicate, demonstrate that in an outdoor space of. So in any event, what we in order to do that, and it was also we were paid by the federal government to reduce phosphorus in a lake,
okay.
and that was our goal, was to reduce phosphorus. Well, how we went about it was very different, and we had people. When you ask somebody what do you want in a park, they'll give you the regular stuff. Oh, I want the
Mm-hmm.
play set. I
Right,
want the.
right.
So what we had them do was we created experiences for them to share with us what were some of their dreams, what were the hidden things that they really would love but had never tapped into. What's the story they want to tell? And we did a lot of work with turning places into characters of stories. And so we would have people, they didn't know that when they came into an event, they were given a series of characters and they were asked to create a story, an adventure with water. They had no idea that one of the characters was in fact the piece of land. And
Mm.
and so they created these stories, and then we would stand back and say, okay, now there's that adventure. How do we translate that into a design?
That's amazing.
And so the
Yeah.
designs of the land were so different because they came from a different place. They all were naturalized, because water is interesting. Water needs to go in. I don't know if we talked about this the last time, but it needs to go into a vortex and movement in order to lose its memory of being polluted. And it
Mm.
also needs to be around color and sound, which
Okay.
it has naturally, of course, in nature. And when it does that, it interestingly enough, it restructures itself into its life-affirming molecular structure. You can have water that's wet,
Mm.
but it is not in its highest structure.
Oh, absolutely. No, as somebody that's I mean, I literally am surrounded by water right now. Okay, so there's the 10-gallon tank, the 20-gallon hex, the 20-gallon with the axolotl. There's a 300-gallon pond in the room next to us.
A couple tanks upstairs too.
There's 2 or 3 fish tanks upstairs.
Pond out back.
Right.
Pond out back. Well,
Yeah.
Pond out back is currently waiting for me to fix it again because they
That's
jumped
okay.
on the ice in the winter and cut holes in it. But anyways, things that hurt.
Ooh.
But that consistently, and I'm gonna jump out on a limb and say at some point you've seen What the Bleep. One of the discussions is very much they were looking at the effects of energy on the crystallization of water.
Yes.
And
Yes. Dr. Emoto did a lot of work around that.
absolutely.
Yes.
That's that's who I'm referencing exactly.
Yep.
And so no, I think it goes beyond just the water though too. That it's yes, we all need a little churn and a little color and
Absolutely. We're 80% water, so we're going to. So what? Here was the fascinating thing. If you designed designed an outdoor space with that concept in mind, both people and water were reinvigorated.
Right.
And so we created some really different outdoor spaces. A rain theater where people actually experienced rain, like that rain performs every time it rains.
Yes. God, yes.
And so again, that's my play. Is I take something that looks like it's going to be really hard, serious work, and that's why Brett and I have such a great time doing this summit work, and why we've had such a great time doing the Call to the Mothers, which is what we co-created together with our friend Ramilla.
Wow.
But it's because we really want to bring play into a dynamic that can be very difficult, very tragic, very depressing.
Absolutely.
And bringing play in does not take away from the seriousness of it. What it does is open up the divinity of it.
And it lightens it. It
Yes.
is such a powerful it's more fun to laugh at it. It's ridiculous, folks. Just get on board. It is really silly, this thing. Look around for a minute, and if you can't laugh, remember that female platypuses are venomous.
What?
Wow.
Like,
If
That's
you want,
a new one on me.
Well, but if you want to add to the ridiculous nature of life,
Yes.
the males are
Yes.
not.
That's wild. That is wild.
Well,
Those old platypuses know a thing or two.
right? But
Yeah.
we know it was leftover parts. We know.
Must have been.
yeah.
Must have been.
A beaver
Must
duck?
have been.
Really? No.
But the play is, there's a wonderful woman, Susan Ackerman, and she wrote a book called Deep Play.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a real Renaissance woman. She's an artist, a musician. But her opening chapter talks about a couple of tiger cubs and how when watching them, everything that they will need to survive in later life, they learn through play.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cats in general. Watch your cats at your house.
Yep.
I mean, we've got.
Yep.
Or watch the puppies. That's funny too. Puppies are. You know what? If you want to learn how to meditate, watch a puppy chase a bee.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
I watch my dog chase the frogs that I release from the skimmer of the pool.
Right. That life is life, and it's really cool if you slow down and watch it. What is
Exactly.
that? Ferris Bueller.
Exactly.
You got to slow down every once in a while and say, what the hell?
Probably.
I'm going to assume, and it's an assumption, but I'll bet that when you look at the 3 questions, how do you work? How do you play? How do you pray? That's similar for at least me and Ross and I have talked about it. That really the prayer part is our play. It is our work. That this right here, what I'm doing, this feeling this connection with you, it's my prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It's my I wear the prayer for the end of all suffering from the Buddhist tradition on my wrist.
Right.
And this is my prayer to end all suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That I think if I just keep pointing over my shoulder and saying, have you met my friends? That I know how exponentials work. It doesn't take that long. It just takes actively doing it.
Exactly. And there's in 1997, I was turned on. My sister actually, she was traveling across Canada, and she stopped off in Toronto, and she gave me a call, and she said, "I just picked up a book in the airport in Halifax, where she was living at the time," and she said, "It's by Marianne Williamson. It's called A Return to Prayer." And she said, "It's changing my life. I think you should go out and get it." So I always do it. My sister said, "We weren't divorced anymore. We were back together again." And what was really interesting was that she writes in the very opening of that book that many of us that grew up in the '60s, our souls were tattooed, and that we're now only remembering that we have been tattooed, and that now we have that the soul is coming back very clearly and saying, "Okay, you had your break, you went and got your skills, you got your experience, you got what you needed to get. Now it's time to return to what you came to really do." And the prayers that she has in that book are awesome. I've never seen prayers like it.
Well,
they are so practical and yet so divine.
I saw a man in prayer, and it blew me away. Because first off, no one would have immediately recognized it as prayer. But recently, I started rewatching 3 Days of Peace and Love, the Woodstock experience. And as you watch the beginning of it, and first off, you want to blow away modern artists, just show them Richie Havens singing Freedom,
I know.
and they will fall over.
Oh my God, absolutely.
They're looking at Michael Lang as it's finally become apparent there's no way they're going to be able to keep the fences up. That 300,000 is not even close. By Friday night, they're looking at 1.5 million people. And just like I feel, he looks at them and goes, because they're asking him, "So is everybody going to be screwed on the money? Is everybody going to be screwed on the money?" He goes, yeah. And they're like, "Well, so what are you going to do?" He goes, "It doesn't matter. It's happening. That's all that matters. It's happening."
That's it.
And you can see in his eyes that energy and that feeling I have right now, which is, you know what, they want me to be attached to the money, and I don't care. It's happening. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and the money will come. It's an energy form. So it finds its way in to be able to whatever support it can provide, but it will come in maybe different forms. And again, I think what's really fabulous about businesses that have a not a vision or mission, but that have a not just a purpose. I think we're looking for a different word now in terms. They have an essence that they have a passion. Really about.
They have a lifeblood.
Passion, absolutely, that's around that. They if that's their goal, then money will come to it, as opposed to the goal is to make profit, and oh, by the way, we might do something good. It's literally reversing it. But talking about prayer, there was a study that we actually, when we were doing some strategic planning for Manulife way back, I think in the 1994, and we brought a guy from MIT that had this idea called the internet that he was introducing to people at the time, but we also shared with them an article that was the cover of Life magazine was an order of nuns in the northeast United States, and this particular order, they had always dedicated their brains to science. That was part of their deal, and they had been looking at the evolution of these women's brains, and the scientific outcome was that you can grow your brain matter. That
nice.
You can grow and it's the connections in your brain that grow. And what they found when they opened these nuns heads up was that they were milliliters from the cranium, whereas in most people there's quite a gap between where the brain ends and the skull starts. So they started looking and saying, what is it about these nuns that would have that, and that would have grow the brain matter the way they did? And so they, in watching their lifestyle, these women would, talk about prayer. They lived their life in prayer in many ways, but they actually had physical prayer. Then they would meditate. Then they would go and garden. Then they would sing. And then they ran a multi-million-dollar business.
Oh, jeez.
Right? They had their hospital. They had their school. These other things.
Which sisters is this? Sisters of?
I'm going to have to look them up again. They're in the northeast United States.
That would I'm interested. As somebody that went to Catholic school as a non-Catholic and loved the nuns I had. I only, there were only 2 or 3 left at that point, so this is 80s high school. And we also had a Monsignor who's I had never understood that the Monsignor title is the same as like getting a doctorate.
Right.
And his was in music.
Wow.
Monsignor Gallon looked like he wore the cassock, and B, he would play piano for us when we did musicals, and it looked like you had the Phantom of the Opera down on the.
I love it. I love it. Love it.
He had such a wry sense of humor too. He was such an old school guy. He always called us lugs. Come on, lugs. And so his one big joke was, "Boys, do you know what you call a prostitute? A lug wrench."
Oh my gosh. He was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
He was.
Holy gosh. But switching that just a little, there's
Absolutely.
a show that I absolutely love called Call the Midwife. And it's a show about it starts out in the 50s in the docks in London as the country starts to rebuild after the war. And there are a series of and it's just a beautiful series of how an order of midwives, like midwives, are living with an order of nuns, and they cohabitate in the convent. And to see it is probably watching and so they take it from the 50s, 60s, and then into early 70s, and to see how this order of nuns, you just fall in love with them, of how they help in the most difficult of circumstances during, and how understanding and incredibly compassionate with the most difficult of circumstances at childbirth and the situations, because at the docks that was where many people came to live when they got off the ship. There was nowhere else to go, so they lived at the docks. And anyway, it's watching it. So when I look at that order of nuns, for an example, that I read about, these women that I watch on Call the Midwife bring that all to life, and you can understand how these women, not only did they grow their brains, they grew their hearts.
Right.
And phenomenal.
A life of service is its own reward. It really. I try to tell people that, if you want to sleep better, if you want to be happier, if you want to have a better day, fill it with gratitude and service, and honesty, because then what happens at the end of the day, you did your best, you feel good. Do it because you're selfish. Be a good narcissist. Reward yourself. You deserve it. Be good to the world.
Right.
You know what? What do you love? Like, I get the feeling what you love is just about everything, that you feel connected to the universe. But what do you love?
I love family. I love the essence of family. I love nature. I just find nature is probably one of the most magical, amazing. I do work now in a thing called the listening field, where we literally listen to the nature elders who come in with the people who come into the listening field, and I just am in awe of the advice. Absolutely in awe of the advice that we're getting from nature. The one I have the hardest time loving is myself.
Oh, God,
so
yeah.
I love, again, I think for the family for me is really, really important, and nature. I think those two things are, and then I love my work. But I the idea for love for me is again, it's a field of energy that you can create in being inside it. You change and you're different and you evolve. And I think we haven't really, this is my sense, is that we haven't really understood the concept of the field of love yet.
I agree.
And I think that it's much more than we can even imagine.
I think that if you put love in the New Testament, the Christy bits as opposed to the Paul's crazy bits, that if you convert the word love to energy, it covers it too. That I think.
Yes, and it is absolutely that. And I think love is also. I'm starting to get very connected to. I love nature, but I'm also fascinated by the cosmic energy that's coming in.
Yeah.
and how we are vessels and can be vessels of both the cosmic energy from it coming in through our heads and our energy bodies, as well as the earth energy from our feet. And how we can mix together these amazing cosmic and the heaven and earth inside us.
That for me it was, so I started off with, as I was saying, the idea that it stuck in my craw, the idea that there was a line between who I was hoping for enlightenment for, that I was trying to save only the sentient life forms. Nah, I can't. That was a line I couldn't hack. I was like, no, that's not true. So it's all living things. And then you get to the all living things, and as you were saying, well, but the rain, oh, God, I've learned a lot from the rain. Shit.
Yeah.
So that's a non-living thing, and the earth is teaching me stuff. Wait a minute, maybe it's all of it. That in the world of, I joke with Ross about the idea that if you go from the outer in, at what point are the cells not you? At which point you have to accept that you are universe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are universe, then it's all meaningful, and every moment has potential and opportunity. And no, literally, I've never been here before.
Every single moment, even the fearful bits. What do you fear?
I fear fear.
That's powerful. No, I understand. Fear is the mind killer.
Yes.
The spice must flow. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, God, I love Dune.
Because I can deal with other things, but fear itself is a mindset that I struggle with. I know that it's here to teach me. I know that if I can befriend it, whatever it is that I'm fearing, as be it a situation or a possibility or a dread or a worry. One could be very fearful today when we look around all the collapsing and what's my future. But I'm certainly not living the life that I thought I would when I first started working, for an example. But at the same time, I'm living a life I could never have imagined.
Right.
So I could get caught up in all the fear. So I do fear itself.
I think that's powerful.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Oh my God. You got it, Ross. You got it. I guess I'm going back into my British lineage.
The hilarious part about that is FDR who said that.
Was it FDR?
He's actually honorably, I think it's FDR and Winston Churchill are both, like, they both had dual citizenship with each other. So it's funny that you said that, because there's an actual connection.
There's an endless connection.
I love shows. Like, I could, when I want to just like turn everything off and just I get on my iPad. I don't really like watching things on the TV anymore. I like the intimacy of the iPad. It's funny. And there's a show called First Lady. And they did the first series on HBO recently, and they run these simultaneously. So it was Betty Ford, Michelle Obama, and Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh wow, that's a range.
And the actresses that play them are phenomenal, and they track over you see these women from the time that normally it's coming in at the election, obviously, because they're becoming a first lady.
Oh, and then they see the way it changes them.
Yeah, and how they change it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's many things that the president cannot do because of the limitations of office, and how each of the women have struggled. Especially Michelle Obama, when she came in, struggled because she was so used to having a platform and being able to do whatever she wanted, and so how she changed the whole idea of eating and food. And so she took an area there was a crack in, and she made it hers. And you see their relationship. Also, it's fascinating to watch the relationships. But with Eleanor Roosevelt, you start to realize how, because of she was his ambassador.
Eleanor Roosevelt changed the first lady experience altogether.
Yes.
That's that. And
it's
when I think of Michelle Obama, I think of that as the most successful marriage I've seen in the White House in my lifetime.
God. Incredible. They are the poster child for a good marriage. Like, honestly.
I would love to talk to Barry. Barry's on my list. I love that once upon a time he was Barry Obama before he was running for. I mean, his name's always been Barack, but it was Barry at college.
The guy who plays Barack, oh my God, you fall in love with him. Like the mannerisms, the way he, like it was anyway. And I hope that they're going to do I hope that they do another series with three other first ladies. But again, I find these dramas that take and like Gaslit. The whole
I've
era
seen the ads
of Watergate
for that,
through Martha Mitchell, I love these things. I just ooze them up.
Well, and we use a fact that we are well aware of, that one of the studies out there relative to how things affect what, hormones, etc., chemicals you're pumping in your body, is if you're having a down moment, picking the old sitcom that was meaningful to you
as a child, it gives you the same chemical
releases
releases,
if you were sitting with old friends.
Except,
but they don't judge. Yeah, right.
You don't have the judgment of them actually being there.
Exactly. Well, it's so interesting, because when I had my an active healing practice, we would often end with, okay, now what's a movie you can watch? What music you can listen to? It was going back into culture as being the vehicle for continuing the healing process. And they intuitively knew, as you said, Ross, go and get that sitcom and now they're all online, they're all available.
We're currently working our way through How I Met Your Mother, I think.
Yeah, we're watching How I Met Your Mother. It's pretty awesome.
That Ross had never seen that. I have a series of them that I've used bubblegum sitcoms for years as my answer at the end of the day. Stuff you've already seen. I'm Michael J. Fox grew up slightly, obviously I don't know him personally, but so I go to Spin City because Michael J. Fox hits that for me age-wise. That I don't go back and watch Family Ties, but I grew up with him on Family Ties. I watched him on Family Ties. And so Spin City for me is very much because he was a person that always resonated with me. And
if I really want to feel good, I go back and I watch old cartoons that I used to watch.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What do you like to watch? What cartoon do you like?
Regular show. I really like Rick and Morty currently. I didn't really grow up with that one, but it's still, I really like it.
We both are very so. No one sees it, but there's a 55-inch TV here in the office.
Right.
And we use it to our advantage. Don't get me wrong, we do a lot of stuff with it. But we also we get big into process. So we watch a lot of documentaries on musicians making albums. Yeah, that we sat down and
we watched the Black Sabbath one. We watched the
Dark
Pink
Side
Floyd
of the Moon
one, Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah,
it's
nice.
And watching them go through that process back when they didn't have any of the equipment we have now.
Yeah.
We spent the day talking. Not the day. We did we had a conversation earlier this week with a buddy of ours that was one of the people that invented hip hop. Okay, he was on the original. He got signed in 1980. He was on the eighth piece of vinyl pressed with hip hop. They used a stamp to label it. But God, it all relates, and then my head goes away.
Okay.
Speak.
It's okay. It's something that TV and culture, those things can really rejuvenate who you are, and it can really pull you out of a dark place. Just understanding how other people have used their creativity and how other people have tried to pull themselves out of dark places.
Yes.
It can really help in a bind,
And when in doubt, Schoolhouse Rock.
Yup, Schoolhouse Rock always hits.
When in doubt, Schoolhouse Rock. But it does. You can put Schoolhouse Rock on. It doesn't matter how old you are, and you can't help but go, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Looking up cars and roads.
I'm just a bill.
Sitting on Capitol Hill.
Speaking of Schoolhouse Rock, what do you know?
What do I know? I know that I learn something every moment, I know that knowledge is a living thing. It is always changing. It's a life form itself.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm here for a purpose.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I call it ambient knowledge.
As we all are. As we all are.
Yes. And the hardest part is getting people to stop thinking about what can I do to get the things I want
versus what do I want to do?
What do I want to be?
Yeah.
What do I want to be? Who am
discovering.
I? Yeah.
It's a discovery thing. It's very much. I ran into a Tibetan monk once, 3 times in a week actually, and I finally looked at him one day and I said, "So what are you doing here?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Playing at being American." And what went through my head is, aren't we all just playing at being? That's how it feels to me. That you have to embrace it as. I have a wise couple that we've talked to, Rick and Janelle, and the way they see it is we are the fingers of the universe meant to experience everything, both good and bad.
Wonderful.
And so on the days it's really crappy, they look up at the sky and they go, "So did you feel that? You really needed to feel that, huh? I'll be honest, I wasn't hip, but okay. Can we move on to the next thing now?"
Right.
And so they laugh at it and they move on.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about being in situations where the only reason you're going, "Oh, this is a bad situation," is because you have such abundance in your life. You know, an overwhelming abundance that you're like, "Oh,
crap, the Wi-Fi's out."
Right.
Dang it. I can't text anybody right now.
Right.
That all of these things are really just based on our own spoiled nature at this point.
Totally.
And so as opposed to, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world." No, the end of the world would be noticeable. And for the record, it's not based on whether or not we as a species go extinct. The world's going to keep whirling along.
Absolutely.
It's the end of our world,
Absolutely.
maybe.
As we know it.
Maybe.
But
I feel fine.
And I think that what you just talked about is so critical. You know, you hear a lot of lately, and I did since the 90s, really, you know, what's my purpose? Find your purpose, and what's your bliss, and find your passion. And I when I say I have a purpose, meaning that I know I'm here, that I chose to incarnate at this particular time because of these circumstances, and that. That's is that this was a strategic choice. I just didn't drop in.
Absolutely.
and that the purpose is always evolving. And as you know, if I evolve with the world, that purpose will continue to change and evolve and I don't want to bring it down into one sentence and one word, because then I limit myself.
Absolutely. That I find words are cages. You know, Willie Shakes covered it with roses. You know, that by any other name, of course it still is sweet.
Right.
I spaced out and I was like, "Who is Willie Shakes? What?" No, he was talking about William Shakespeare, and I'm like,
yes,
who is Willie Shakes?
He did that the last time.
I love Willie.
We had to ask the question.
Willie has beautiful things. That, you know what, I am a big one on the idea. All of those people that we think of as iconic, they're you. They don't put people on so high a pedestal that you think their accomplishments are
that you can't,
or that they're different. They're not any different than you. They're people
just like you.
Peopling.
Yep. They may have peopled for a lot longer, or a lot shorter. Who knows? Who cares?
You are kind of short.
Well, you know, talking about William Shakespeare, what's interesting is a show performing now. It opened up in June in Toronto, and it came from London, and it's called And Juliet, and it is the story of what would happen if Shakespeare's wife, whose name is Anne Hathaway, by the way, in real life.
Oh my God, that's funny.
That is hilarious.
And what if she were to have advised him on a rewrite of Romeo and Juliet? And what would happen if Juliet hadn't died? And that's the story, the book, and the book is written by one of the lead writers of Schitt's Creek,
Oh,
the Canadian
jeez.
David West Reed. But what's fascinating about it was that he wrote this book, like the book for the musical, based on is all the music of the Swedish pop songwriter Max Martin.
Oh,
With all of it, Backstreet Boys, all, Britney Spears. So the show is about the liberation of Juliet, because she doesn't die.
Nice.
It's the liberation and empowerment of Anne Hathaway, who's telling Shakespeare that he really needs to rewrite Romeo and Juliet. And it's all the music. It's the music of Max Martin.
Is Juliet the only one that doesn't die?
Yeah, Romeo died. I think Romeo dies already. But it's like, why is she taking her life?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that Romeo and Juliet is like, we use it as
it's
the
a
greatest
terrible
story.
story.
Of love.
No, they both died. It's no.
Well, but what about the part where he was stalking her, outside
like that
her
was
house?
good either. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm getting tickets. I really
that
want
sounds
to see it.
amazing.
I think it's such a colorful show.
Awesome. I forget which. Oh, it wasn't Taming of the Shrew. There are a number of amazing versions of Taming of the Shrew out there, but the brothers Karamazov.
Oh, the Merry Wives of Windsor.
Well,
the one they performed in New York on the they brought it modern day with Black Lives Matter and all of that.
Oh, wow. No, that I'm remembering. So in the 70s or 80s, there was a group called the Brothers Karamazov. What they did was juggling.
Oh, God.
They were jugglers, and it's a version of Shakespeare with a good deal of juggling. And I remember we were PBS kids growing up. Thank God for PBS. You know what? In the world of things that PBS gave me, you know what? There weren't a lot of channels, and my parents, that's what we watched. We watched Nova and weird Shakespearean things and mystery and Inside the Actor's Studio and Monty Python.
Yeah.
Because you have to watch Monty Python or you won't know about Blue, Sometimes I pine for the fjords. I'm just saying. That there's so much that William Shakespeare has added to our lives in the things we know. That his joy of playing with perspective, the very thing we're doing here, is what made Shakespeare work. The looking into the inner turmoil that you wouldn't normally see.
And the question is, was he one person, or was he? Were there a number of writers that he then became the vehicle of? He could well have been the one writer.
But either way, because I run into this, I run into the same thing with Christ. Is that it doesn't matter? Okay, so there's the discussion.
It doesn't matter exactly.
How did the information get in the world? Isn't as valuable as is it wise?
Yep, totally agree. Totally agree.
That I did a bunch of meditation on that, because you start looking at the revered teachers and you look at the period of time between occurrence and then actual record. It'd be, that whether it's Buddha or Christ, Muhammad hung around for a while, and Buddha got to say lots of stuff, but it was all spoken word. Or even if you look at, the Old Testament, the oral tradition, I started meditating on, does source matter? Because there's so much debate on source. For me, in the Buddhist community, that's just somewhere I spend a lot of time, because I resonate with those thoughts as opposed to I define myself. There are, well, yes, but that's not an exact Buddha quote. Like, but does it have wisdom in it? It resonated with me as wise, and I've read the whole Buddha thing, and I think it covers everybody. So the Buddha said it. I believe if you read, you'll find we're all Buddha. Good deal. Somebody said it.
Speaking to what you were saying about looking inward a little bit, what do you wish you knew?
I don't have anything I wish I knew, because if I'm meant to know it, it will come.
I like that.
You owe me a Coke.
Dang it. I didn't say it. Well, you didn't say it.
We were, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You said Jinx, I said Coke. You know what?
You know what? We'll divvy that up.
We'll divvy it up. We'll split a Coke. It'll be fine. It'll be
Cheersies.
fine.
Cheersies. Halvesies. That's funny.
But I so resonate with that. I like that. No, I find new stuff every day, and I don't know what it's gonna be.
Right, and so half the time, it'll just come out of the blue, and I wouldn't even know that I would need to know that, but it just shows up. And I don't want to put a limit on what I know, so I'm just going to say you're going to bring me what I need to know, and it's on demand, and it's just in time.
Little ambient knowledge everywhere, all the time.
Yep.
It's like ambient temperature. Know that there's a constant flow. It's you know what? If you're paying attention to what's around you, get your AK out, and not a gun, the ambient knowledge part, and and soak it up. You're a sponge. Yeah. We're sponges.
Exactly, we are.
Well, there's as Westerners, we debate, is the glass half full, is the glass half empty. Depending on which Buddhist group you're with, is the glass full? Does it need to be empty? Are you filling it? All of that. And no, really, it's it flows through me. There's a hole in my cup, and I love it. And I resisted at first, the idea that, wait a minute, I'm not holding on to this so much as just going through and coming back out like a mirror. And then it was like, no, okay, I get it. There's supposed to be a hole in the bottom of my cup. I love that it flows through, and I don't know what's going to fill it today. But I know that tomorrow I'll be back to that cup will be empty again. And those seeds have flown through, and wherever they land, it's planting trees for shade that I'll never know. And I don't know, I have no clue. I look back on my life and the idea that somehow I'm really, come on. But it all falls into place.
It does. It does.
You were talking about being, an active, I'm here for this now. There's a purpose for why. And what I think,
and I'll uncover it as I go.
Right. I think of it as an endlessly expanding puzzle waiting for the right pieces.
Totally agree.
And we're those pieces. And if we rest in it, we fall into place.
And what's funny? I use that analogy quite often when people when talking about, because I still do strategic planning and that kind of thing as well. And I said, when you were a kid, you got the picture, the pieces of the puzzle, and you put them together, and you still do, based on the picture on the box. Now we're asked to put the pieces together and stand back and say, what picture does this form?
Absolutely.
And so that's the magic of it, is being able to. But it sometimes we want to look and see and determine what that picture is too early. When not all the pieces are in yet, and we make assumptions and we limit ourselves, and sometimes we wait too long, and the best before date has passed us by.
And we learn from that.
It's a real tricky thing, right?
And we learn from that.
Yeah.
That just means that was supposed to happen.
Exactly.
For me, because I'm a '70s kid, little boy that grew up, in the U.S. It's all Lego. In my head, all the ideas are constantly moving, and it's funny because people are going, we need this now, and Ross will tell you that then what happens in a burst, something happens.
Yeah.
Because it's been floating around in my head till it was right.
Right.
Exactly. And I wasn't attached to how it was gonna. The 10 questions is like that.
My brain works like that. It's like I won't be able to write for like days and days and days. And then apparently I'll just have 3 songs written, just out of the blue. It just comes out, and I'm like, okay, it was working in the background. It was
exactly. And so that's what people say about procrastination, is that maybe it isn't procrastination at all, and maybe it's just we don't understand our timing.
Well, and I always say learning to rest in your pieces is powerful.
I love that.
Coming
to
to terms with the idea that our natural state isn't go, it's pause.
Yeah.
And if you embrace the pause, all of a sudden the world opens up to like, oh wow, I would have missed that opportunity. I didn't see that thing.
Right.
Because you'd already defined what you were looking for, and at that point everything.
Right.
So even on the worst days, and I had an awful meeting last night. Oh, not awful. I don't want to say that. I had a meeting that was really rough last night with some really close friends, and they're all aflutter, and I kind of rested in it overnight and said, oh, okay, I see where that's going. Oh, that actually makes sense. And you can't even, the funny thing is you can't look at people yet and go, no, this was a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
As you're going, okay, how does this actually manifest into evolution? That
Yeah.
often, I did text a friend relative to the situation. I said, you know what? I've actually been in the room when they've given birth before. And the idea that we as a group of men are having trouble with giving birth to something probably makes sense.
Yes, that would make sense. Absolutely.
It's right up there with, I always look at people and go, you know, I've watched babies. And the reality is you have to crawl first. And you're probably
Yeah,
going to
you
eat
do.
a little dirt along the way. But it's
Yes.
okay. Eating a little dirt's normal.
Exactly.
And that's life right
Exactly. And it
there.
actually can taste good if you want.
Right.
You know, if you're into that kind of thing.
Sometimes you got to eat a little dirt. Maybe there's some on your
That's right.
mushrooms or something, or, you know, anyway.
So we're finally up to the last question.
The last question.
And what's that one?
Why are you here?
Well, I'm here to experience life. And it comes back to that old adage that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And the idea that I'm all about experience, but it's hard. And there are times when you don't, that's the last experience you want to have.
Yeah, right.
But you're having it for a reason, and you're here. It's about learning. It's about evolving. It's about taking this lineage that I've inherited and giving it an upgrade while I'm here. As I do that, I think what's fascinating is looking at I've always thought it would be really cool to be in the human resource planning department and with the souls, and what kind of can you imagine what kind of system they have, because you've got to match up the soul evolution that wants to be done with the lineage of the family lineage, and looking at the matching. Like, it is probably one
You
of
have
the
to
most
match with the nurture and the nature.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah, exactly. So you're dropping into a body that actually has that type of buried somewhere 2, 3, 4 generations back, or previous or just the one before, but it sits there with the lesson that you're meant to learn, and the experience that you're meant to learn around, be it abandonment, or be it power, be it whatever it is that you've come in to learn, to evolve. And I've always thought it would be so fascinating to be part of that matching process. So I do believe that I chose this body, this family, this lineage, for a very, very important reason, and that I'm experiencing in some cases a lot of pain with it, but also a lot of joy. So that's why I'm here, to experience.
So, and this is what resonates with me, that I'm going, so you're here where you've always been, doing what you were always supposed to do. Yeah. That lately, it's for me that if I can look back and all the pieces fall into place.
Yes.
The only reason the pieces aren't falling into place in front of me is just because I don't have the proper perspective yet. But I know they do. I know they fall into place. I don't have to.
Well, it's like the Alternative Reality Summit. It's an example of, we worked together for about 18 months or a year, whatever it was, to get Call to the Mothers up and running. We got our pilot in Malawi happening in March, and then everything came to a screaming halt. And then I had a meeting set up with someone that could have really helped in the domain of mental health, and it got canceled when they saw that what I was talking about from the research we'd been learning, that the system was really struggling, and so the meeting got canceled, and that's a couple of days later when Brett did the call and said, we have to create an alternative reality, and ever since he made that call and created that webpage, and we've almost 300 members later, 5 weeks later, things have fallen. Like, it was the right time. It was the right time. And
there's a wave.
And as we play and we evolve and we take this Taste of Wonderland process and start to see it as a framework of really bringing different ways of exploring an alternative reality in the realm of mental health, which is a doorway to how we actually live in society, as a different way of living. I just think it's absolutely, but it's all a matter of timing and the right pieces and the right situation being ready. And it is when you look backwards and you say, wow, how that fell into place the way it did. I look at my eldest son and how he met his wife, and how they met, and then they split up, and then they met again a number of years later, and now have this amazing life.
Right.
You couldn't have written a better script.
That stranger than fiction always has been.
Yeah.
Always has been.
Absolutely.
And especially if you're open to that idea.
Yes.
I you know what, I'm a stranger in a strange land and proud of it. That it's like I landed on this planet this morning and let me experience this amazing thing.
And it's lovely to be able to feel that even in a moment, right? Because there's other times when you're inside a discord, and you're inside a painful scenario, painful situation, and knowing that, okay, well, this too shall pass. And there will be a time once I've sort of figured out what this is trying to help me understand, what my shift in perception needs to be, how do I, that as the fairies, how I move in a different way, then I can start to look at it from a different way. But it is even in a moment, being able to feel what you just described is lovely.
It's beautiful. I love that you have given me the most valuable gift any other human being can give me.
Your time.
Well, I can't tell you how friggin' amazing it is to have spent my birthday with you guys.
Well,
and you have allowed me to wander down memory lane and to pull out experiences that I had forgotten, and to explore my own perceptions on things in ways that I would never have done.
Well, thank you.
On my birthday. It is glorious.
We're honored to be here with you on your birthday.
We're honored to be here with you on your birthday. I am so attached to world and life as teacher, and what a beautiful way to enrich our day, and to have you then on top of it grateful that we have enriched yours. That's the circle.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely an honor, and I love you guys. I love what you're doing. I love the dynamic you have between the two of you. I love the way that you explore these deeper questions, but with the humor and with real life circumstances and real life energy. So it's fabulous. I can't tell you how thrilled I am that we were able to do it today.
Oh my God!
Well, thank you.
The smile plastered on my face is from ear to ear. You know what? I resonate so deeply with our shared experience and this wave that we're a part of, and I can't wait to do this more. I just because what we always do is we start with 10 questions, and what we're working on is the idea that what you build is rabbit holes. Speaking of Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
And that somebody resonates with a person, but then we continue having more conversations with that person over time and talking about stuff, so that then they go, oh, let me go find out about this. Let me go, oh, wow, that.
Yeah.
But what I've found time and again today, no matter how many times I do this, I find myself. And it's so powerful. I find, wow, we're all trying to define the same shared experience.
Yes.
And it's...
Yes.
Have you met my friends? Thank you. I love you too, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I can't wait to do this more.
Me too. And we're on this amazing journey together, this whole idea of reimagining the word mental illness, mental health, and getting those out of our vocabulary and creating a very different language, perspective,
health
reality. And the fact that we're on this journey together is just awesome. Just friggin' awesome.
Well, thank you for letting us on board. You know what?
Wow. Fantastic. We're really lucky to have you.
Shucks. I wish I knew that when I looked in the mirror. Too, like you, have that the one place I see the divinity in everything, except sometimes the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. So we can do it for each other, all three of us. We can we can all three. There we go.
Cheersies. We'll split the Coke
Cheersies.
We'll split the Coke 3 ways.
Yep.
All right.
I love you.
Sounds good.
We're actually going to be back on in about 15 minutes with another interview.
Well, I'll let you dash, but it's been absolutely such a gift. You've given me the best gift for my birthday, and that sounds really narcissistic to say thank you for giving me the gift of my reflection.
I think it's
for my birthday, but it couldn't have been a better gift.
Thank you. So it was meaningful to have you here on your birthday.
Yes.
I end up drawing those Zen circles regularly.
You do. You absolutely do. Well, blessings. Have a great 15-minute break, and a fabulous interview next.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon.
We will.
Okay.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Bye-bye, Hilary. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. She's got so much energy.
You guys could talk each other up the fucking wall. Jesus Christ. Because, like, she was starting